The Pixel 7 Pro is doing more for me than 21 is doing for Drake. Let's talk about that.
So honestly, there's no reason at all an advertising company like Google should be making a phone this good for $900. And even though it doesn't have every feature, there's a ton of industry-leading features that we love about this phone.
One of my personal favorite things about this phone is the user interface and the design of this phone. It's so clean, so crispy, and I wish every phone would get this right.
Google is infamous for their aesthetics, and they didn't drop the ball here either. Both inside and out, this phone I think just looks great.
The one feature that kind of shattered my expectations was the sounds and the haptics in this phone. It's such a nice package that Google put together. It's such a great feel in the hand. And when I'm going to get rid of these recent apps, listen to this. That's so nice, so clean.
Next is the Magic Eraser. Honestly, when the Magic Eraser first came out, I thought it'd be kind of a gimmick. However, I think this is really a feature that they can grow with and really make some great photos with. Here's a small feature that's kind of slept on, but I really enjoy. The spam call auto answer. What Google does is when it knows a spam call is coming in, it answers the call for you with a fake voicemail. What I noticed when I was using the phone is they almost immediately hang up because they know it's Google answering. I think this is a great feature to avoid all those unwanted spam calls.
Probably the best feature about the Pixel 7 Pro has to be its cameras. We'll talk a little bit more about it later, but they speak for themselves.
This is the big selling point on the Google phones, is their night sight camera. Google started this trend, and I think they're still winning in this trend. They have a great night camera. It's something you can do a lot with. It's something you can take great photos with. So I gotta recommend this feature.
Lastly, when you get a Google phone, you get the Google Suite. I love having Google Drive, Google Messages, everything Google, especially Google Assistant, because that is the superior voice assistant.
In terms of least favorite features, I have to say photo and blur, which is a big topic of their launch event, is a little oversold. It's just not quite where it needs to be yet, but there is some promise.
Dear Google, why did you get rid of the colored power button? It was our favorite feature about this phone, and from here on out, please make every phone with a colored power button.
The glossy back on the phone is just not exactly the feel I go for on a phone. Leaves a lot of fingerprints, doesn't feel nice in the hand.
I absolutely hate when a phone is glossy because I can see so many fingerprints. Please, 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 all phone makers, make all your phones have a matte finish on the back.
So we've talked about some of our highs and lows about this phone, but let's get into the details. Let's start with the camera. First, some quick specs on the camera. You got a 15 megapixel main camera lens, and then a 12 megapixel ultra wide lens, and finally a 48 megapixel 5x optical telephoto. And then on the front facing camera, you have a 10.8 megapixel ultra wide selfie cam. And finally, in terms of video, you get 4K 60 frames per second on the rear main camera, as well as 1080 240 for some epic slow-mo videos.
So what can this camera do? Those specs sound great, but what do they translate to in real life use? Basically, the photography on this phone is like Tom Brady, and the video is like Russell Wilson. Pixel Nation, let's ride.
Tom Brady aside, you're getting a great point and shoot camera here. You can expect sharp images, natural colors, and really true to life feel from your photos. Especially for skin tones, Google's implemented a True Tone feature, which accurately depicts skin tones. Thumbs up, way to go Google, good stuff.
One of the biggest year-over-year changes from the Pixel 6 are these new bigger sensors, 50 megapixels in the main and 48 megapixels in the telephoto. Bigger sensors means more light and a shallower depth of field, but also you can crop in to the inner 12 megapixels of the sensors. In doing so, Google is effectively getting an extra 2x optical zoom on their images. That way, your main sensor can go up to 2x optical, or your 5x telephoto can go up to 10x optical. With this extra zoom, this puts the Pixel 7 Pro up there with the Galaxy S22 Ultra in terms of zoom photography. Although it's hard to beat having dedicated 10x telephoto cameras in your phone. But easily my favorite part of having this 50 megapixel sensor is the natural depth of field and natural bokeh, or that background blur.
If you want to see how this camera stacks up to some other phones, check out this video me and Cal made in Minnesota.
And finally, since we have to talk about it, the selfie cam on this phone is okay. It's nothing to write home about. It's just a selfie cam. The fact that Google decided to put a 10.8 megapixel sensor instead of a 12 megapixel sensor like other phones is subpar to say the least, which is why these photos are so grainy and also darker than most of the other phones. However, one really cool feature that Google introduced with the selfie camera this year is guided frame. This was intended for people who are visually impaired. If you want to learn more about this, we talk about it in this video up here, so check that out. Now let's move on to design and user interface. So let's start with design. This phone is just a refined, cleaner version of last year's Pixel 6 Pro. Each color option just has the same color on the top and the bottom of the camera bump, whereas last year there was a different color on the top and the bottom. I think this just makes it cleaner and simpler and looks better to the eye. One of the more major changes is this camera bar. So this year it's a metal camera bar, whereas last year it was all glass across with no camera cutouts. I think this just looks a little bit better, same with the colors. It just makes it cleaner, simpler, and better looking. And finally, we talked about this in our first podcast episode, but Google is using more recycled materials in their products this year, which is always a great thing to see. However, like I mentioned earlier, I just wish I had this colored power button again, and I wish they had the matte finish on the back. But other than that, this is one of the best looking phones on the market today.
In terms of user interface, the Pixel 7 Pro is running stock Android 13, which we think brings a lively and vibrant UI to the Pixel thanks to Material U, which uses your wallpaper to create a color palette that it uses across your phone's user interface. We think that this UI is a seamless crossover from older Pixel devices and also other Androids, so if you have a Samsung, there should be no issue switching over here. And finally, we really think this is a UI that takes the best part of iOS and the best part of Android and puts them into one phone. Finally, I have to give a quick shout out to one extra perk you get by getting a Pixel is that you get Android features and updates before other phones.
One of the things that contributes to the great UI experience on this phone is the display. You're getting a 6.7-inch 1440p 120Hz LTPO display. I just said a lot of words. So what the heck does this mean for you? Well, at $899, this might be one of the only phones that offers 1440p and 120Hz at the same time. Samsung's S22 Ultra does it, but that's for $1,200, and none of the iPhones actually do it. So this is a very unique set of features for this price. This display has amazing colors and is also relatively bright compared to other phones at 1000 nits. The screen also curves slightly over the edges. It's not as aggressive as other phones, but I would prefer a flat screen. Overall, using the UI on this phone, watching videos, looking at pictures, it is an extremely enjoyable experience on this display.
In terms of battery, you're getting the same thing as last year's phone, which is a 5000 milliamp battery. Google is rating this to last 24 hours, and if you're in a pinch, you can put it in extreme battery saving mode and get 72 hours out of it. Although this is the same battery, the Tensor 2 chip has gotten much more efficient, which is squeezing some more extra battery life out of it. In terms of charging speeds, this isn't a very fast charger, but with a 30-watt charger, you can get to 50% in 30 minutes. And in terms of wireless charging, on the Google stand, and 23 watts, you can do about the same. However, normally you only get a max of 12 watt on other wireless chargers. And finally, one cool perk that they put in this phone is reverse wireless charging. So you can set down your AirPods or whatever wireless headphones you may have and charge them through your phone. So if there's one thing to take away from this video, it's that the Pixel 7 Pro is such an easy phone to pick up and use, whether you're coming from iPhone or Android.
The user experience is second to none. It's one of the most enjoyable phones to use on a daily basis.
And for $899, it is the best bang for buck all-around package you can get on the market right now. And there's no doubt about it.
So if you like this video, leave a thumbs up down below.
If you want to see more like it, subscribe for the vibe. And always remember, it can't be beefy
without the cake.